Welcome to episode 2 of the smartest hour in self-storage. We are excited to have you here. I think we've got a really interesting show for everyone here. And there is no better way to start that than with trivia. But before I do that, I just want to shout out, obviously, Noah Starr, CEO of TractIQ, joined by Chris Berg, Matt West, and then the rest of the TractIQ folks, Taylor Bills, Marina Martinez, and Nikki Morrison. What we're going to do for this first segment is to make it fun and interactive, is we're going to do 4 questions. And so right now, people, you should all see 4 questions on your screen. And what we're going to do is answer them the best that you can, and then I'm going to show you the data behind all of these trends. So, the first question here is only one storage REIT grew occupancy year over year. Which one was that? The second question, I can see the responses are coming in here. So I'll give folks a second. The second question that you should see on your screen here is we track all of the facilities across the country that have a CMBS loan with their occupancy and performance data. Which state across California, Texas, Florida, or New York has the highest NOI margin? The third question here, since Q1 of 2019, how has the national 10 by 10 street rate changed? And then the fourth question is which REIT has the largest achieved rate premium over its street rate? So I see lots of folks have already started to fill this out. We're gonna give folks another couple minutes, but we're gonna dive into the first question first. The answer is NSA. So what I'm gonna do here is pop open the data that supports what we're talking about here. And the cool news is that all of you are going to get access to this data, but we'll talk more about that later. So what I've got here is the REIT occupancy trends since 2015 for Extra Space, Public Storage, CubeSmart, NSA, and SmartStop. You can see here that all of the REITs year over year through Q1 were down except for NSA. They were up almost a full percentage point here, and you can kind of see that trend. Obviously, NSA was also had the lowest occupancy across all of these REITs. But that is the answer to the first question. And it looks like only 15% of you had that correct. So good to see that filling out. And most of you have filled out this form. So now let's go to the second question. Among which CMBS financed facilities, which state has the highest NOI margin? The audience is correct here. It's going to be California. So now I'm going to flow here and I'm going to look here and see what you're looking at here is a state by state breakdown, looking at expense ratios by state, effective gross income by state, and then on the right here, the median NOI margin for all these states. I cherry picked California, Texas, Florida, New York, and you can see California has had a 66% NOI margin. Texas with a 54% NOI margin. You think about property taxes, things like that. But that's the second question. The third question, since 2019, how has the 10 by 10 street rate changed? The answer is actually down 5.8%. So what you're looking at now here is the actual 10 by 10 street prices since 2019. You can see here that street rates are down 5.8% since 2019, down a little bit more, probably a lot more compared to their peak post the COVID years. But this gives you a sense for all the historic REIT data. And last but not least, which REIT has the highest achieved rate premium? The audience says Extra Space. Are they right? They are not right. It is NSA that actually has the largest achieve rate premium. And there's two ways to look at achieve rate premium. But what you're looking at on the screen here is you can see TractIQ street rate versus the REIT achieved rate. You can look at this on a percentage basis or a dollar basis, but you can see the street rate for NSA facilities in TractIQ is just under $11, while their achieve rate was just under 16. That was the biggest percentage delta with public storage, um, next in terms of percentage, and then followed by Extra Space and CubeSmart. So, wanted to hit you guys right with the bat. We're going to end this poll and appreciate you guys taking it. Hope you found it was fun. The call today is going to be about data and AI and what you can do. And if folks were on the last webinar from a month ago, or our TractIQ customers, you know that we released an AI connector. We've had almost 30,000 AI calls since that release. It's been awesome, but there's an extreme of folks like a Matt West and a Chris Berg, and then other people that are just dabbling into AI that might be a little intimidated. So, what we wanted to do today was bring in three experts and actually walk through the process of how they came to start using AI, how it's changed their workflows, and see actually what they've built. So, the first person up is Taylor Bills. Everyone, round of applause for Taylor. I could see the noise is overwhelming from all of these folks virtually, but the question I'll pose to Taylor, he is our director of research. He has put out some incredible research for the industry. If you've read any of our research reports, it's coming from Taylor. So, Taylor, I would love for you to walk us through 1 year ago when you put together a REIT report. What did that process look like? And what does that process look right now?
Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen here. And thank you so much for the warm welcome. Okay, I think you guys can see that. As Noah mentioned, I work on a lot of research related projects at TractIQ, the REIT report being one of them. Hopefully, a lot of you have been able to read that and find some value there. But to begin, like Noah said, I'm going to walk you through like what my process was a year ago and how that has improved pretty drastically to today and made my job a little bit easier and allowed me to focus on a little more high value projects. So if you're looking at my screen right now, this is our PDF report of the Q4 2025 REIT report. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. We've got some commentary, lots of data, charts and graphs. I just wanted to say there's a lot of data that goes into these charts. And just to set the stage here, I'm going to flip over to this tab. This screen gives you a glimpse into what the process was like a year ago for me to create these REIT reports. I mean, right off the bat, it's a little bit overwhelming. There's lots of data, lots of inputs, lots of copy and pasting and manual data entry that was going on a year ago. And there was really two parts to updating a chart and a graph or a graph like this in the REIT report. The first part was looking to extract data from TractIQ, and that process looked like me manually writing queries and then plugging those into TractIQ and then extracting them from TractIQ and copying, pasting them into this Google Sheet. If you see on my screen right now, there was a lot of copying and pasting into tabs into Google Sheet, just pulling the raw data from TractIQ and getting it into these tabs into Google Sheet. And then I would eventually land on a single tab to aggregate all the data and organize it in a way that is presentable and digestible in a chart or graph. So that was part one. Part two was actually downloading and reading all of the REIT supplemental reports that they put out every quarter. I would have to find the achieved rates and the occupancy numbers, pull those and input those manually into this Google Sheet, and then combine those with TractIQ's data and hopefully make a good looking graph that's valuable to a potential reader. So that all that being said, it was a very manual process. It took me a lot of time. It took me days to do this. It was a lot of copying and pasting. And I think when you're doing a lot of manual data entry, there's potential for human error to be involved. And we try to limit that as much as possible. So I wanted to flip over to what we're doing today and how what we're doing today has solved a lot of these problems using AI and using TractIQ's AI connector. So I'll flip over to this. This is what we are calling the TractIQ REIT report dashboard. Noah showcased this a minute ago. I'm going to dive in and show you briefly what this is all about. I'm not going to show you the whole thing to spoil all the surprises, but I'll show you the dashboard and then I'll explain how this solved a lot of my problems that I was facing a year ago when creating these REIT reports. Just right off the bat, you've got each REIT side by side. You can compare the metrics. What's cool about an interactive dashboard is, for example, you can click on this drop down and go and look at all the historical data from previous quarters for each of the REIT. That's something that's hard to do in a PDF report, but it's easily done in an interactive dashboard like this. In addition, here's an occupancy chart. You can hover over the chart and dive into all the details in whatever time period you want. Here's another occupancy chart, achieved rent per square foot chart, all the move in and move out information from the REITs, which is really cool, really exciting stuff. I did want to stop here for a minute. This is the MSA section of the dashboard. The REITs, they put out a lot of great data for all their MSAs, and it's a lot of data. And it's not something we've historically been able to give you in a typical PDF report just because there's so much data, it would look a little bit unorganized and overwhelming, but in a dashboard format, it looks a lot better. For example, you could switch between REITs here if you wanted to look at CubeSmart and look at all their MSAs, the top and bottom MSAs, which ones are performing, which ones are underperforming. You can look at all of their MSAs from the latest quarter, year-over-year trends, and you can even dive into historical data from all previous quarters when it comes to achieved rates and occupancy and things like that. So I won't go through the whole thing, but this dashboard solved a lot of problems for me that I was facing a year ago. When we think about manual data entry, I do very little, if any, manual data entry today when I'm doing these REIT reports. I mean, it's as simple as asking Claude, hey, can you pull the data from TractIQ and update this dashboard with the latest? And it does it. Or it's as simple as, hey, I've attached a REIT financial supplemental report. Can you read it and extract all the data from the REITs and update this dashboard with the latest data? So it eliminates a lot of the manual data entry, and with that, it eliminates a lot of the potential for human error to come into the equation. I mean, it takes me probably half a day now to update this dashboard and verify it and review it and make sure it's all correct, as opposed to last year it was taking me days to do all the manual data entry and things like that. And I think it just looks a lot better. I mean, I'm not a very artistic person, and I was building charts and graphs into Google Sheets a year ago, and Claude was able to help me a lot when it comes to visually presenting data. So a lot of benefits to this. I was able to streamline my workflow, and because of that, it saved me a ton of time, and I'm able to focus on higher value projects like, okay, what are some new analysis we can do for the next report, or what are some new charts and graphs we can give to you guys that is going to be valuable for the self-storage community. Those are the things I want to spend my time on, and not doing
Yep.
manual data entry and things like that.
This is incredible, Taylor, and there's something cool for everyone on this webinar. So what Taylor is showing you here, and Taylor, let me take back and share my screen. So what Taylor is showing you here is he basically created a huge Claude artifact that pulls in all of our structured data. And then if he wants to add Q2 2026, it's as simple as updating this artifact. So what ended up happening is Taylor sends me this artifact. And he said, hey, I built this in Claude. Here is an artifact of all of the data from the REITs for since 2015. Store count, we've got commentary, MSA street rate tables, street and achieved, discounting trends, non-REIT occupancy versus REIT, a pipeline map of all the REITs. And I look at this and I say, OMG, how can we give this to people? What ended up happening is the TractIQ team had a conversation with Nikki and our team and Patrick, and we said, how cool would it be if we created an interactive data hub where we put all of our large scale data artifacts and use it as a test to see if people like it? So what we actually, and I'll let Nikki or Marina put this in the chat, is if you're a TractIQ customer or not for free, you can access this interactive hub, and we have a bunch of artifacts that Taylor and Nikki and the team have built. Like, do you want to see where the REITs are not located? Here you can build like your custom analysis to see markets that REITs aren't in. If you want to see where the top street rates are, these are all artifacts done by our research team that we are empowering you all with. And it started because Taylor wanted to improve his process for building REIT reports. And now we realize that, oh, wait, a stale PDF becomes irrelevant the day after we publish it. But all these artifacts are completely live. So the next time that Taylor updates this, it's updated for everyone within the same context. So I think Nikki just put in a link to the Interactive Data Hub. It's totally free. We'll talk about it towards the end. But now, massive shout out to Taylor. He's awesome. And I want to transition and move a little upstream. All right. So Taylor was just talking about the research phase of what we've done at TractIQ and how this has changed his workflow 1000x. I want to now talk about Chris Berg, who is awesome. I've been on his show before. He's got a great podcast every week. You guys should check out. So, Chris, I want to transition to you and move towards the underwriting and deal analysis side of things. A year ago, if I were to send you a storage deal to look at and underwrite, what would that process look like? And what does that process look like today?
Great question. Before I dive into that, I just want to say thank you, Noah, for putting this together and what your entire team is building, because I believe that time is the most valuable asset that each one of us has. And thanks to what you guys are building at TractIQ, I don't know, 1000x might be a little bit hyperbolic, but it's close to 1000x as to what you guys have allowed me to do to maximize my time. So to answer your question specifically, a year ago, you would send me a deal, and or I would go to Crexy or LoopNet, looking for deals, and or a broker IE would send me a deal, and I would go into TractIQ. I'd take the address, put it in there, run it through our buy box, see how the numbers look up, all that kind of stuff. And as anyone that's in acquisitions knows, it's very laborious and it's extremely monotonous, which makes AI the perfect tool to go out there and start to build some leverage. And so I think a prime example, that was a year ago how I would go about doing it. Last Friday, because I've been putting together some different tools and agents to see how much I can leverage the TractIQ data and the tools. I literally, Noah, took a CSV file of 52 sites. So 52 sites, one that I would just peck at a time, to 52, put them in my agent, which I'll show you here in a moment, and went to a meeting. So it was like I doubled myself, right? I was able to put these 52 sites in there, let it do its analysis on its own, went to my meeting, came back, put it in somewhere else where I needed it to be. So it's just been extremely, extremely powerful. So to share with people a little bit of an example of how that works. And I think one thing that I really want people to know, and you're probably going to see this as I go through this example, I am not a tech person. Like I know zero about tech. So if you're out there and you're a little bit maybe tepid about jumping into AI or whatnot, I would just encourage you to just have some fun with it and just start stretching yourself, because I know nothing about this stuff. And yet it's been pretty, I don't want to say easy, but it's been pretty simple to go out there and put some of these things together. And as long as you just treat it like an employee that you're onboarding, things work pretty well. So what I did is I grabbed a couple of addresses, and I'm going to run through here just to keep it simple and show you an example. But let's say run. One thing I'll let people know, if you can see over here on the side, I've got these instructions in here. This is probably version 7 of my instructions. So again, at first it's not going to be perfect, but as long as you know that going in, then you can start to tweak the instructions so it's more and more effective as you go. But so now these instructions are to tell it what to do. So I just come in and say, run your analysis on these two addresses and give me the copy and paste instructions for agent 2. Agent 2 is my zoning agent. This one, as you can see, the title there is just more of a demographics analyzer. And so what it's going to do is it's going to go and run that demographic analysis thanks to TractIQ and the MCP. So Noah, fingers crossed. Let's see if this actually does what it's supposed to do. And then you can start to pepper me with some questions. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I would love to ask a question while this is running. So when you sent that list of 50 properties to your agents and then headed to a meeting, were you were you able to do that on your phone? Or like how easy was that to do and structure that list before actually going to the meeting?
I did not do it on my phone, but hypothetically, I absolutely could. So, like, if you sent me a deal and I was out and about, I absolutely could run it through my phone. But it, I guess it was simple. I just took the list. I said, hey, run your analysis on these sites. It did that. And as you can see, I'm asking it for copy and paste instructions for agent 2. So when I came back, it had that all there. And I just basically hit copy
And
and
just to simplify, so I'll have a we're gonna have a builder's playbook at the end of this call that is a guide that to us is the way you should think about these tools and make them less scary. And one of them is I think the term agent is overly scary. But in reality, what you have here is a skill, right? You were showing that before where you worked with Claude to say, I want to create a Claude skill that does this, this, and this. And then Claude would actually create the skill, save it as a skill, which you're calling agent 2 or agent 1, and then you can ask Claude to use agent 1 or 2 and look at this site, and it already has all those instructions. How long did it take for you to get to that version 7, and how easy was that to create?
yeah, I would say it's been a good. I mean, when did you guys release the MCP? So it's probably been a good, what, 2.5, 3 months that I've been continuing trying to tweak that. But again, I think if you can approach a skill or whatever kind of language you want to label it as an onboarding a new employee, I think it's kind of the same thing. When someone first gets started, they're kind of, philandering around trying to figure it out. And then you continue to get better and better. And it's the same thing with the instructions with the agent.
Yep. Can you do us a favor and click into the first prompt? You see where it says scrutinize residential addresses against development criteria? Yep. So what's actually, so you can see this is the process that Claude is actually taking per your skill, right? Starting to screen 2 self-storage properties, one in San Jose and one in Pasadena. Since Chris is actively involved in the chat, I can surface findings, right? Um, and it mentioned, is this also hooked up to a CRM at the same time?
It is, which I'll share with people, kind of our dashboard, which this is where I think, becomes so powerful when you layer your guys's tracked IQ data, and then this is a customized dashboard that I built. And again, I know nothing about tech. I've talked to my computer and it built it, which I know sounds crazy, at least it does to me, but that's really how simple it is. And the power in this, as you can see down here, right now, again, this is only a couple months old, but we've got roughly 1,000 deals in here. Obviously, this is going to continue to grow. And the power, in my opinion, though, is the compounding. At some point a year from now, let's say this thing's got 5,000 deals in it, I'll be able to utilize Claude and TractIQ and say, hey, go re-underwrite or go reanalyze, all the sites in zip code 91361 or however I want to language that. But the beautiful thing is it talks to my CRM and it'll go ahead and re-underwrite things. I've got all the
So
notes in here from
if I
zoning
could
and
summarize for the audience, a year ago, you had what would be called a traditional underwriting process, right? Today, you, with Claude, built your own CRM dashboard that connects directly with TractIQ's data and connects directly to your agents in Claude. So in this case, your agents just came back with some insights around these two properties, and you can actually now structure and keep track of all of this in the same place.
yeah, what's incredible, if you look at this, what's so beautiful again about Claude is it's basically telling me, which again, I just grabbed some random addresses for today. I can grab some more if you like, but it's basically after its initial analysis, like, look, these are two residential, no point in wasting any money on a tract IQ spend, no reason to put them in the CRM. Let's skip and go on to the next ones. I mean, it's just, before, again, I would have to peck through the address, go on Google Maps, see what the demos were. And now it just does it without me while I'm talking to you. It's doing the work.
And now you're talking about putting in 50 to 100 addresses at a time instead of one or two, where of those 50 that you put in, how many came back with you should deep dive?
I think there was 26, if I remember correctly, and then some of them were already in the CRM. Just for an example, though, if you don't mind, because you and I have done this before, and I don't, if you need to cut me off, cut me off. But one of the things that I could do here as well is use Whisper and say, "Hey, run your analysis. I want you to find two sites that are in my screening, or excuse me, in my source column, and run a quick analysis on one of those sites, and let's see what you come up with."
And Chris, before you do that, there is a question that popped up. If you don't mind answering, I'll read it to you.
Well, I would hit go so it goes, and then we can get to the question. So you go. There you go.
All right, there's a question from Joe in the Q&A. Can you talk a little more about your agent one and two? Over the last week, I've been trying to come up with a set of key metrics that I'm building with Claude to help me evaluate properties.
Yeah, so I would encourage you to go into Claude and just go into like a regular chat and just say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Like, obviously, we've got a certain buy box, yours might be different. And say, I'm looking to go through this procedure that I do to find sites. Can you help me write out the instructions for an agent so that I can just tell you to run an analysis kind of thing? You just sort of ask it to work with you and it'll go through that. And then for agent two has been our zoning agent or skill, Noah, sorry. But basically the same thing. You just say, I'm looking to build out a zoning skill where I can just give you an address and you will go and search the city documents or whatever you want it to do. And it'll just kind of work with you. Again, initially, it's probably not going to be great, but that's where you can continue to work with it and say, okay, this was good. That wasn't. Can you change this? Do this better? And it'll just rewrite those instructions. You put them in that skill, as Noah calls them. Um, and I hate to say it, but that it's really that simple. So you just got to kind of
Awesome.
babysit it initially, and then you're good.
All right, so Chris, do me a favor. When this is done, let's pull this up for Q&A, but I want to get to Matt so we stick on time. But that was awesome, Chris, and I'm curious to see what this says. So, setting the scene. We just talked about Taylor with the research. We then went a little bit more upstream to deal flow. Okay. And now I think we're going to go to the most extreme example of the application of AI that I've seen from our good friend Matt West. So, Matt, you've been in the storage industry for quite some time in the acquisition space. You didn't study computer science, To my knowledge, you don't write code. Um, what was AI like for you on March 27th? And what is it like for you now? And what do you have to show us today?
Let me back up real quick to 2008, where I was using Google search to hope and pray that all storage facilities were going to be in the trade area, and then using Google Earth at the time to measure the facilities so I could get a comp set. So, that was 2008. March 27th this year, I had been, I've been with my place now for just over a year. My 2026 kind of theme or mantra was data-driven decision making. And, my goal was to build a data warehouse. Up until March 27th, I had been using ChatGPT primarily contextually. And the 27th is when you gave me the first look at the TractIQ MCP connector, and you told me I could use ChatGPT or Claude. I was like, okay, I'm familiar with ChatGPT. Let me give Claude a shot and see what, see the differences and see which I like better. And I have not looked back since. I signed up for Claude, I think on the 31st of that month, so about 79 days ago. And I do most of my work in Claude Code, and I didn't start using Claude Code until like 56 days ago. So everything that I've built that I'm about to show you is a result of learning from 79 days ago to really diving in deeper 56 days ago. So it's completely changed the way we're able to underwrite deals, the speed that we're able to underwrite deals, and kudos to you and your team, Noah. Is the data is the most critical piece of AI, in my opinion. Data and prompt engineering. You have to know your data, you have to trust your data, and you have to know how to communicate with whatever AI tool you're working with to give that tool the instructions for the results that you want. So, I mean, prompt engineering, I think, is by far one of the most critical pieces of building something with AI on a solid data set. So it's changed significantly. The tool you want me to share
Go
now,
for it.
Noah?
Let
All
with
right.
that introduction, I think people are very curious to know, okay, what in the world did Matt just build here?
So, like I said, going into, I wanted to create a data warehouse and just get as much access to data that I could possibly get. I then ran into issues with the software as a service provider we're using for our pipeline tool. Getting that data into that tool was problematic, expensive, and it took a long time to implement. So that's when I started, playing around with Claude and just started communicating with it. Like Chris talked about earlier, it's just a simple conversation of instructing it what to do. So this is what I'm showing you here is
Matt,
the
I don't think
tract.
we can see your screen just yet.
Oh, that's the help if I
There we
complete this
go.
step.
Now we're talking.
All right. So what we're looking at here is,
Let me just set the scene a little bit, okay?
yeah, go for it.
What you're looking at here, Matt built. Okay, 79 days ago. No coding, no nothing, no real AI application. Now, Matt, please. So what are we looking at here with this deal that's on the screen here?
So this is roughly represents 10% of what I've been working on. So this is the TractIQ portion of a pipeline tool that I built from scratch. I understand data and I understand data schemas and the importance of it. So that's a little helpful for me to be able to work with Claude Code in that way. But this is like I said, all of the TractIQ data that I have plugged in directly to the tool via the API and I'm primarily also using the MCP connector. So this is already preloaded. So what we're looking at here is a deal that we had under contract. It's now since closed, but I'm just keeping it in under contract in the pipeline stage here to show this. You get your demographics, trade area demographics. I can look at this and say, maybe it's not a 3-mile trade area. Maybe it's more of a 5-mile. So I can actively select any of and toggle any of those. I know this now, but it's has a unique geography where the 3-mile trade area and the supply here doesn't necessarily reflect, in my opinion, the geographic limitations of the submarket. So I included the drive time here as well. And you can see here the equivalent to the 3-mile trade area with the drive time is a lower net rentable square foot per person. Going through, I've got all of the rates for the 1 and 3 5-mile radius. 2 facilities, my eyes are bad, 8 and 13 facilities in total. These are pulling the web rates of climate control and non-climate control for these size units in this trade area. Then it goes down and gives me the full comp set with the rates associated with it. All of this is exclusively TractIQ data. I can look at this one and say, maybe I don't want to include this as a comp. It's an industrial center and it's adding square feet that may or may not be reflective of truly self-storage. So I will deselect that one. And as you can see, the rates and numbers changed across all the tables above. Then this actually also calls out the new supply pipeline. So this is a potential deal that is under construction currently, as called out by TractIQ data. I can click on that and see a little bit more detail into that. And this was something I added probably at 10 o'clock last night, so I have more work to do here, but definitely some cool features there that you can include as well. Noah and team, these will probably look familiar to you. These are rate trends and a rate analysis report for this submarket from TractIQ data. I emulated this on TractIQ web, and the graph looks exactly the same, which makes sense, right? Because it's the same data. So let's see here.
So let me pause you here for a second, Matt. So if I can summarize, obviously you have TractIQ, which is great, but it's historically been disconnected from the way in which your team and organization, the CRM and the asset management workflows, and really where you run your business. The data has historically been disconnected, and getting that data into that system not only it's been possible, but it's been really expensive and it would require like a CRM tools team and our team to like do an integration, and that's not easy. In your case, you practically rebuilt TractIQ within the pipeline tool that you guys use to run your business. So now the data flows everywhere instead of having to go to a TractIQ, exporting stuff, uploading stuff, and doing that on and on. It's now a cohesive workflow across the team.
Correct.
And you had
And
no
also,
engineering experience 3 months ago.
correct.
Okay.
So keep in mind my tool is connected to a database. So I've got a data warehouse. So anytime I refresh TractIQ data, it's also being stored into my data warehouse, where that's going to help my TractIQ calls going forward, where it's not pulling data that it already has in the database. If the data hasn't changed, the call to TractIQ MCP connector won't call for that data. So, I mean, there's the amount that you can store and the history you can garner from deals that you've looked at and may not have even transacted on, or deals that you purchased and then are moved over to asset management. I mean, that the whole workflow and single key and or reducing the amount of keystrokes, right? That has to happen from ingestion to investment memo to transfer over to operations. I mean, you don't need to key anything in twice anymore, in my opinion.
Mhm. But
Um,
I'd love to bring it down. And before we go to the builder's play, I think this is a good transition into the builder's playbook that we have. Why don't you show the map and then we'll transition into how can we, like the system you and Chris and Taylor used, where this might feel really intimidating, and I don't want, someone might be watching this, I don't want to build a CRM. I just want to be really efficient with my time. But go for the map first because I think it's really interesting.
so yeah, I just did this a quick kind of iframe overlay map here. As you're looking at a deal, um, I can see the comps in the submarkets with a pop-up. Um, I can throw in the FEMA flood layer so I can look at it quickly and say, is this in a flood zone? Yes or no. Um, and then this is kind of cool. I haven't seen this done a lot, but I have allowed the layers of the radius ring and drive time to overlay so you can see kind of where they both sit. If you're not picking one or the other, or you want to use both. So kind of threw that map in there, and let me go to this other map here real quick, Noah. Um, this one I want to show because it has the TractIQ universe. With your subscription to the Max plan, you get the TractIQ universe, which is all 70,994 facilities, and got those plugged in here with call outs to data that's pulling from the database live. So
Pretty crazy. Lots of credit to you and the whole My Place organization for obviously being very tech forward, and you for obviously understanding data, but being curious and actually going ahead and building something like this. I think we got some really great submissions. A lot of those folks are on this call, but I think you and Chris and Taylor have really done an awesome job applying yourselves into building stuff that's really useful and leads to better decisions, better deal flow, all of that. So I want to bring it down into a playbook, and then we're going to open it up
Quick
for
question.
Q&A.
Yeah, I think there's a quick
I'm
question
gonna
Matt on this one.
cut.
What app system do you use to run your dashboard?
So this is all built and run via Claude Code. So Claude Code, it gets a little bit technical, but it uses a Windows PowerShell prompt. And Claude Code then uses whatever the most efficient tool is for the task at hand. So it could be running Python for one task, and honestly, I don't even know what the other tools are, but it could be using Python for one and another tool for another task run simultaneously. So Claude Code is smarter than I am, and it just uses what's most efficient and best for that task.
Awesome. Well, great job, Matt and Chris and Taylor. Let's bring it into a playbook for folks, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A.
We
But
closed the deal, so I'm celebrating, and I've just marked it as closed on my tool.
awesome. That was really impressive stuff. Love to see it. So what I want to go through now is a builder's playbook that everyone you'll get access to after this call, which is actually lives in this data hub. And it's called Builder's Playbook. So I want to kind of go through this with you all, Chris, Matt, Taylor, and this is from conversations, but and it's funny, even on this call, I think all of you guys said these exact things. So, a couple of things to get you started. I think people say AI, and that's great. People say LLM, that's great. These are tools. And if you think about it as tools, I think it's a lot simpler when you put it in that perspective, versus this scary concept of AI, right? Matt didn't start saying, I want to build a fully integrated CRM that 5 years ago would have cost me 50 grand a year. He said, I have this one problem and I want to solve it. Can we solve it? And he realized, wait, I can also solve some other problems. And it turned into something unique. I think the same is true for Chris and for Taylor. Would you guys agree with what I just said? Okay. The second, I said this before, agents are all the rave right now. People want to build agents. Agents are just skills. And so if you go into Claude or your LLM and you ask it, I would like to build a skill for building investment grade memos. Can you help me build a skill to do exactly that so that I can put memos in this format this quickly, already screened for my investment committee based on the things I know that they're going to ask me about? And you work with Claude, you build the skill, you ask it to create a memo, you refine the skill, and over time, the skill becomes innate as part of, as we saw in Chris's workflow, he already treats them kind of like I've got my zoning agent one, I've got my zoning agent two, but that's from just that simple starting point. And now, anytime Chris wants to understand zoning, he calls zoning agent number two, and it's part of his process. Chris, anything to add on the third one? Train it like a new hire. This comes directly from you.
Yeah, I think just be patient with yourself more or less. Again, I'm not a tech person, and so I get a little bit frustrated when it's like, no, this is what I want. And so I think if you can just be patient with yourself and continue to communicate to Claude in different ways and try to see it from different angles, and then it'll start giving you some different suggestions, and you'll kind of know, okay, yeah, this seems at least workable. What's that minimal viable product, right? That people talk about. Like, let me start here. May not be perfect, but now you're getting some reps in. And one thing, if I might add, no, I was talking to a person the other day, and we were talking about, in today's age, it's probably a good idea to carve out 4 hours a week. You just kind of take a few hours each week and just vibe code. Just sit down with these things and start having fun and stretch it and push it and see what it does. And I think it gives, at least for me, it's given me a lot more comfort.
Awesome. And then Taylor, anything to talk about in terms of trusting it, right? I think someone might have had alarm bells going off. Oh my gosh, you're just dropping in this into Claude. How do I know that the research is right? How do you think about this last one?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, I always review everything that I ask Claude to put out. I double check things, I do gut checks. The good thing is that reviewing takes a lot less time than manually inputting, all the data that I was talking about earlier. But I think that's super important. Always review, always verify, because there's definitely mistakes that can happen. That's part of the process now.
Awesome. Um, Great. Well, I think this playbook is a little bit longer. It's got some prompts that you can start with if you haven't already, um, and what to build first, depending on where you guys sit. I think I'll hit on this for a second, and then as you guys have questions, start dropping them in now because we're gonna get right into the Q&A from the rest of the team. But I kind of broke this down by acquisitions, development, operations, and asset management, right?
Hey, Noah, can you scroll back up to the trusted data section there real quick? Sorry to
Oh
interrupt.
yeah.
I want to highlight this again. I mean, it's uh, AI is only as good as the data that it's working from, right? And you know, working with TractIQ and your data, industry standard in my opinion, and you have to trust the data, like, and you have to know where the data is coming from. So if you have AI or any sort of smart learning tool analyze or infer data for you, you better trust the data. So kudos to you and your team for giving us the data that I trust. So
Love it. Well, yeah, sounds great. I think if you guys start to have questions, please drop them in. I'll say one thing for TractIQ customers to actually get to this interactive data hub. Um, all you need to do is if you're in your TractIQ account, we kind of hit it so that you don't click on it until this meeting. But in the very bottom left here, there's a button and you just click it and it'll take you right into the interactive data hub. This includes all of the REIT data. It includes all of the MSA level and national data. It includes a summary of all of the CMBS performance data, occupancy, achieve rates, expense ratios, and it's updated when we update it. So even though we're going to still plan to do PDFs, I think, depending on people's feedback, but um, yeah, I think this hopefully will build over time to keep adding things that people find to be useful, and encourage you to make your own artifacts and share them with us. We'd love to see the artifacts, potentially add them in. So hopefully this is valuable to all of you. And then if you are not a TractIQ customer, Nikki just dropped this in. It's now this website here, totally free. You can create an account. All it would do is you would get access to the data hub. And you can see we're going to constantly update this. So for each research project or each research report we put out, there will probably be a PDF, and then also the interactive hub will be updated. And we've gotten some cool requests about, I don't know, putting all that REIT data into the Claude tools so that you can query all the historic REIT data and all the historic CMBS data and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're looking at. All right. And also, while questions come in, I just want to highlight the next episode of the Smartest Hour in Self-Storage is on July 21st at 1 p.m. Central. We're going to be launching something new as always, because at TractIQ, we always launch something new every quarter. But yeah, next Wednesday of next week, we're going to have something pretty interesting that I think folks will see. And with that, questions, comments, concerns, we're going to open it up to folks.
There's one question in the Q&A from Keith. Is it better to have agent skills specific to only a task? Example, underwriting, zoned, build costs, etc. Or what do you guys recommend? You kind of covered a little bit of it already, but if you want to touch base on that.
I'm happy to
Chris,
jump
you
in,
want to
Noah.
take that one? Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I think the way at least I got it set up and what I found to be effective is I've got one agent that does this initial demographic overview to give me an idea. Hey, is this a site that I want to continue to dig into? Once it passes that test, and I just tell Claude, give me copy and paste instructions for agent two. And my agent two is only focused on zoning. And I think that becomes, again, just really powerful from a compounding effect as it starts to build its own memory. It gets better at understanding zoning in different municipalities. And then the third agent we've got is a scoring agent to say, okay, this thing passed initial demographics or kind of your buy box. Zoning seems like it's somewhat viable. Here's an actual viability score that we have. And that's, again, just based on our own kind of buy box and what we're doing. And then from there, it's like, all right, this one passed the smell test. Let's dig into this thing a bit more and start to do some serious underwriting.
Love it. Matt, anything you would add there?
You know, I rarely go into Claude, the Chrome Claude or the Claude desktop app anymore. I'm primarily in Claude Code, so it's a little bit different there. But I do have, so basically I have the Claude Code. I have a boot menu where I do have it broken out by task or by project that I'm working on. So yeah, I would definitely have it focus on one task or project at a time for sure.
Awesome. Okay.
Hey,
And
Noah, can I add one thing to that? Just again, I think if you think about it as an employee, right? Like when you hire somebody, you want them to be really, really good at one thing, and someone else is really, really good at another thing. If you take that approach with these skills, I think it'll save you a lot of headaches.
awesome. Dirk Matnack. Hey, Dirk. Good to see your comment. Had a good comment about Drift being real with all MCP connections in Claude. and um, said some really interesting things here, but I view drift as kind of like hallucinating or like not really understanding what you're asking for. I think we've talked about on this call being really specific and really intentional and giving a lot of context. You can never give too much context, probably with any of these things. Um, I think in our case, using the AI connector, right? When you want to ask what is occupancy or achieve rates or street and web rates, don't ask about Austin, ask about a specific address, ask about the 3 5 mile radius. Be super intentional with the location you're talking about. And we've built the tool in a way that it'll deliver the structured data directly into the AI workflow. But the more context you give, the more you overshare, I think the better. And I think Chris was mentioning, whisper. I have something else on my computer called monotone, I think, but you can talk into it, right? And give it all the details that you're comfortable giving so that it really understands what you're trying to build. Um,
Real quick to add to that, Noah, my prompts for a new task are basically me communicating, like designing a white paper or a case study. I mean, my prompts are probably 3 to 5 pages of a Word document long that I'm giving to whatever, AI that I'm using for the first instruction. So, very, very specific. And I can't emphasize enough how important prompt engineering and prompt input is.
yep. We have time for one more question. So I want to ask, I think Taylor, you had a good question in our chats. I'll start with you, Chris. What was in hindsight, looking back on your experience with AI, um, what was the biggest challenge that you had, and how did you overcome that? And then the same question I would ask to Matt, and we can end it on that question.
The biggest challenge I had with AI, I think, was my past with electronics is I feel like I'm going to break it, right? So it's like, oh man, I don't want to screw this up. It's going to break or something. And I just sort of realized like, this is what this is really good at, is just testing things out and telling, hey, that was good, that was bad. And just being a lot more maybe malleable and realizing that nothing's going to break.
Matt, what about you?
Honestly, I haven't really had a challenge. I mean, my database died 90 minutes before the call, and Claude Code rebuilt it for me and reconnected everything. So, that could have been disastrous. I mean, it had a backup plan, but something like that. I can also make live revamps to the whole structure of part of the tool in production with a user in it, and nothing happens, like nothing bad happens. So it's changed the way I work, really.
Love it. Well, on that note, we're gonna cut it there. Thank you everyone to joining on the second episode of the Smartest Hour in Self-Storage. Got to do some trivia, got to look at some really awesome builds. Credit to Taylor, Chris, Matt for all the work that you've done and sharing this with people. People really do appreciate all of this. And like Nikki mentioned, you'll get an email with a link to this recording, so you can always watch it again. You'll be able to get access to the interactive data hub that has all those artifacts and information. And as always, feel free to reach out to any of us if you have questions or want to talk through things.